I was stirring the pot roast, Trevor's favorite, the one with carrots and potatoes that I'd made every Sunday for 40 years, when I heard the knock, sharp, official, the kind of knock that makes your heart drop before you even open the door. 2 police officers stood on my porch. The younger one looked uncomfortable. The older one, a woman with gray streaks in her hair, met my eyes with practiced sympathy. "Mrs. Sullivan?" she asked. "Yes?" My hand tightened on the doorframe. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Patricia Kendrick, and this is Officer James Holloway. May we come in? It's about your son, Trevor Sullivan." My stomach clenched. What about Trevor? What happened? Officer Kendrick's face softened in that terrible way that means bad news. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm very sorry to inform you that your son was killed in a single-vehicle accident approximately 2 hours ago on Route 47. His car left the road and—" "No," the word came out flat. "Certain. That's impossible. Ma'am, I understand this is shocking, but we found his driver's license, his registration—" "No, you don't understand." I stepped back from the door, suddenly cold. "Trevor is upstairs. He's sleeping. He came home from work early with a headache and went to lie down around 3 o'clock. The 2 officers exchanged glances. Officer Holloway shifted his weight, his hand drifting toward his belt. "Mrs. Sullivan," Officer Kendrick said carefully, "the accident occurred at 3:47 p.m. on Route 47, about 20 miles from here. The victim was identified through his license and vehicle registration. Both confirm Trevor Michael Sullivan, age 36, this address." "Then someone stole his license," I said. My voice was shaking now. "Because my son is upstairs in his bed. I heard him moving around up there not 15 minutes ago." Officer Kendrick's expression changed. The sympathy was still there, but something else had joined it. Concern. Wariness. "Ma'am, would you mind if we went upstairs to check?" "Of course." I turned toward the stairs, my legs somehow still working even though my whole world felt tilted sideways. "I'll show you. You'll see. There's been some terrible mistake." We climbed the stairs, my hand gripping the railing I'd polished just that morning. Officer Holloway stayed behind me. I could feel his tension, the way he hung back slightly. At Trevor's door, I raised my hand to knock. "Trevor? Honey, there are some police officers here. They need to—" Officer Kendrick caught my wrist. "Let me," she said quietly. She knocked. "Police, we need you to come out with your hands visible." There was movement inside, the rustling of sheets, a groan. The door opened, and there was Trevor, my son, my baby, who I'd raised alone after his father left, who I'd put through college, who'd moved back in with me 3 years ago when his business failed. Except Officer Holloway's gun was suddenly in his hand, pointed at Trevor. "Stay away from him," he barked at me. "Ma'am, step back, step. Back now?" "What? What are you—" "Mrs. Sullivan." Officer Kendrick had moved in front of me, her body between me and my son. "That is not your son." Trevor, except they were saying it wasn't Trevor, stood in the doorway, blinking in confusion. He was wearing Trevor's clothes. He had Trevor's face, Trevor's voice when he spoke. "Mom, what's going on? Why are there cops here?" "Hands where I can see them," Officer Holloway commanded. "Now." "You need to come downstairs, Mrs. Sullivan," Officer Kendrick said, her hand on my elbow, firm but not rough. "Right now." I let her guide me backward, down the stairs, even as my mind screamed that this was wrong, all wrong. That was my son. That was Trevor, wasn't it? In the living room, Officer Kendrick sat me down on the couch. Upstairs, I could hear Officer Holloway talking, the crackle of his radio. The man who looked like Trevor was protesting, confused, asking what was happening. "Mrs. Sullivan," Officer Kendrick said, crouching in front of me, "I need you to listen very carefully. Your son, Trevor, died at 3:47 this afternoon. His body is currently at County General. We have his personal effects, his phone. The person upstairs, whoever that is not your son." "But that's impossible," I whispered. "He looks exactly like—" I know. And we're going to figure out what's happening here. But right now, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I stared at her. At this stranger telling me my son was dead, that the man upstairs who'd eaten breakfast with me that morning, who'd complained about his coffee being too bitter, who'd kissed my cheek before going to work, that he was someone else. But what they didn't know, what neither those officers nor that man upstairs knew, was that I had already been planning. For weeks, I'd been documenting, photographing, recording, gathering evidence of something that didn't feel right. They didn't know that this 68-year-old woman had one more card to play. 2 months earlier, I woke up at 5:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in August, the same way I'd woken up every morning for the past 40 years. My body doesn't need an alarm anymore. It just knows when it's time to start the day. The house was quiet as I made my way downstairs, my knee clicking on the third step from the bottom, the one that needed fixing, the one Trevor kept saying he'd get to. I'd learned to step over it on the side to minimize the noise. Trevor didn't like being woken up early. In the kitchen, I started the coffee maker, the old Mr. Coffee that I'd had since 1987, that still worked perfectly fine no matter how many times Trevor suggested I upgrade. While it burbled and hissed, I opened my medication organizer and took my blood pressure pill, my cholesterol medication, and the baby aspirin Dr. Reeves insisted on. I was 68 years old, but I was healthy, active. My mind was sharp, my body strong from daily walks, and the yoga class I'd been taking at the senior center for 5 years. I made my coffee, black, no sugar, I'd never developed a taste for sweetness in my coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with my crossword puzzle. Tuesday was my easy day. I saved the Sunday puzzle for actual Sunday, gave myself something to look forward to. At 6:15, I heard Trevor's alarm go off upstairs, then the snooze. At 6:24, it went off again, then again at 6:33. This was our routine. He'd finally emerge around 7, rushing, asking why I hadn't woken him up earlier, even though I'd tried that for the first 6 months he lived here, and he'd snapped at me every single time. I made breakfast while I waited. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, whole wheat toast. The doctor said I needed to watch my cholesterol, and I'd extended that care to Trevor's meals too. He was 36, but heart disease ran in his father's family. Trevor came down at 7:02, his hair wet from the shower, wearing one of the dress shirts I'd ironed on Sunday. "Morning, Ma," he said, kissing my cheek absently as he grabbed the plate I'd set out for him. "Good morning, honey. How'd you sleep?" "Fine." He was already on his phone, scrolling through something. "Didn't you hear your phone buzzing last night? I texted you like 3 times. My phone was charging in my room. I don't sleep with it." He sighed, the way he did when I didn't understand basic things. "Mom, that's dangerous. What if there's an emergency?" "An emergency like what? You're right here." "Whatever." He shoveled eggs into his mouth, still scrolling. "Hey, so I need to talk to you about something." My heart did that little skip it always did when he said those words. Needed to talk. That usually meant money. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "So, you know how I've been working on getting my consulting business off the ground again?" I knew. After his first business failed 3 years ago, something to do with cryptocurrency that I never fully understood, he'd moved back home temporarily. The consulting business was going to be different, more stable, except it required startup capital. Always startup capital. "Yes, honey. There's this opportunity. This guy I know, Derek Thornton, he's got connections with some major corporations. He can get me contracts. But I need to look the part, you know? I need a better car, new laptop, maybe some better clothes. Corporate image stuff." I took a sip of my coffee. "How much?" "Just like $15,000. And before you say anything, this is an investment. I'll pay you back within 6 months, I swear. This is the real deal, Mom." $15,000. That was a quarter of my savings. The savings I'd built up from my pension from 30 years as an elementary school librarian, from being careful, from never taking vacations or buying myself new clothes unless absolutely necessary. "Trevor, I love you. But you said the same thing last time. His jaw tightened. That was different. That market crashed. This is legitimate business. You still owe me the $8,000 from last year. Silence. He put his fork down, and I could see the frustration building in his face. Mom, come on, don't be like this. I'm trying to build something here. I'm trying to get back on my feet. Do you want me living in your basement forever? You're not in the basement, you're in your old room. You know what I mean. He stood up, his breakfast half-eaten. Forget it. I'll figure it out myself. I always do. Trevor! But he was already grabbing his keys, heading for the door. I'll be home late, don't wait up. The door shut firmly, not quite a slam, but close enough to make the point. I sat there alone in my kitchen, looking at his abandoned plate. This happened once or twice a month now. A request, my hesitation, his anger, the cold silence that followed. I cleaned up the breakfast dishes, washed his plate, put everything away. Then I got dressed for my morning walk. The park was 5 blocks from my house, a loop around a small lake where ducks gathered and old men fished from the banks. I'd been walking this loop every morning for 8 years, ever since my doctor said I needed to move more, keep my heart healthy. Beatrice Chen was already on her second lap when I arrived. She waved when she saw me, her silver hair pulled back in a ponytail, her walking shoes the same bright purple Nike ones I'd helped her pick out at the outlet mall last month. "Morning, Dot," she called. "Thought you weren't coming." "Just a slow start," I said, falling into step beside her. Beatrice was 72 but could outwalk women half her age. She'd been a nurse for 40 years before retiring, and she had opinions about everything, which I loved about her. "Trevor trouble?" she asked knowingly. I'd told Beatrice some of it, not all of it. Not the worst parts, like how Trevor had once suggested I should sell the house my parents had left me, the house I'd raised him in, and move into one of those senior apartments. "Think about it, Mom," he'd said. "All that equity just sitting there. You could help me get started, and you'd have a nice little place with no maintenance." "He asked for money again," I said instead. Beatrice made a sound that was half laugh, half snort. "Of course he did. How much this time?" $15,000. She stopped walking. "Dorothy Sullivan, please tell me you didn't give it to him." "I didn't." "Good. Because you know what Frances told me about her daughter?" Frances Washington was part of our walking group. She usually came on Thursdays. Her daughter had convinced her to take out a second mortgage to invest in a sure-thing business opportunity. "She lost the house," Beatrice said grimly. "Everything. Now she's living in a 1-bedroom apartment and her daughter won't even return her calls. Probably moved on to the next victim." "Trevor's not like that," I said automatically. Beatrice gave me a look. "Isn't he?" We walked in silence for a minute. I watched the ducks paddle across the lake, their lives so simple. No ungrateful children asking for money they'd never pay back. "He's just going through a hard time," I said finally. "He had such potential, Bea. He was so smart in school. Remember when he got that scholarship to state?" "I remember when you worked 2 jobs to pay for his living expenses because the scholarship only covered tuition." "He's my son." "I know, honey." Beatrice's voice softened. "But there's helping and there's enabling. My daughter tells me that all the time. She's a therapist, you know." I did know. Beatrice mentioned it at least once a week. "Just be careful," Beatrice said. "That's all I'm saying. These stories I hear, it's always the same. Adult children who never quite launched. They come home and then they never leave. And the parents, they give and give until there's nothing left." "I'll be careful," I promised. But I wasn't sure if I meant it. That evening, Trevor came home at 9:30. I was reading in the living room, a mystery novel from the library. He came in through the kitchen. I heard him rattling around in the refrigerator. "Did you eat?" I called, grabbed something. He came into the living room with a beer, one of the expensive craft ones he bought and kept in my fridge. He sat down heavily on the couch across from me. "Mom, I'm sorry about this morning." Here it was. The apology. Trevor always apologized, and his apologies always made me feel like maybe I'd been too harsh, too suspicious. "It's okay, honey." "No, it's not. You're right to be cautious. I haven't exactly given you reasons to trust me with money." He ran his hand through his hair, looking tired, vulnerable. "It's just hard, you know? Being 36 and living with your mom. Feeling like a failure." My heart squeezed. "You're not a failure." "I feel like one. All my friends from college. They have houses, families, careers, and I'm here asking my mother for money. You're rebuilding. That takes time." He looked at me, and in that moment, he looked like the little boy who'd come to me crying when the kids at school were mean to him, the boy who'd needed me. "Thanks, Mom. I don't say it enough, but I appreciate everything you do for me. Everything you've always done." "I love you," I said simply. "I love you too." He paused. "Actually, speaking of which, I wanted to talk to you about something else. Something important." I set down my book. "Okay." "You know how you're getting older? I'm 68, not 98. He smiled. I know. But statistically, this is the time when people need to start thinking about their affairs, making sure everything's in order. My affairs are in order." "Yeah, but have you updated your will recently? Do you have a living will? Power of attorney set up?" I frowned. "I have a will. It's at the lawyer's office." "When's the last time you looked at it?" I thought about it. 1997, maybe, after your father and I divorced. "Mom, that was almost 30 years ago." "You need to update it, and you should set up power of attorney. You know, so if something happens and you can't make decisions, someone can handle your finances, your medical care." "I don't think it's important. I've been doing some research. It's actually really easy. There are forms online. I could help you fill them out." Something about this conversation made me uncomfortable, though I couldn't put my finger on why. "I'll think about it." "Mom, don't put this off. This is serious stuff. What if you fell and hit your head? What if you had a stroke? Who would have access to your bank account to pay your bills?" "Trevor, I'm healthy as a horse." "But these things can happen suddenly. Come on, let me help you with this. It's one thing I can actually do for you after everything you've done for me." The way he said it made it sound so reasonable, so loving, like he was just trying to take care of me. "Okay," I heard myself say. "We can look at it." His face brightened. "Great. I'll pull up some forms tomorrow. It'll take like 20 minutes, I promise." After he went upstairs, I sat there with my book unopened in my lap, thinking about Beatrice's words from that morning, about Frances losing her house, about the way Trevor had brought up power of attorney right after I'd refused to give him money. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was one of those suspicious old people who saw threats where there weren't any. Or maybe after 40 years of being a mother, I was finally starting to see my son clearly. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. After Trevor left for wherever he went during the day, he was vague about his meetings and networking. I went upstairs to his room. I told myself I was just cleaning. I changed his sheets every week, vacuumed his floor, dusted his furniture. But this time, I looked. His laptop was sitting on his desk, closed. I didn't know his password, and I wouldn't have known what to look for anyway. But there were papers scattered around. Bills, mostly. His credit card statements. I knew I shouldn't look, but I picked one up. Balance, $24,183. I swallowed. The minimum payment alone was $743 due 3 days ago. There was another statement underneath. Another card. Balance, $18,234. A third card, $31,092. My son was $74,000 in debt. I sat down on his bed, the papers trembling in my hands. How had this happened? What was he spending money on? I looked through the charges, restaurants, bars, online purchases. A charge for $2,400 at something called Elite Men's Fashion, another for $3,800 at an electronics store, $1,200 at a golf club. He'd told me he couldn't afford his own place, that he was barely scraping by. that he needed my help to get his business started. But he was spending thousands on clothes and golf and dinners out. I carefully put the statements back exactly as I'd found them, my hands shaking. Then I went downstairs and did something else I'd never done. I called my lawyer. Elizabeth Brennan had handled my divorce in 1996 and had drafted my will shortly after. She was 70 now, still practicing, and when her receptionist put me through, her voice was warm and familiar. "Dorothy, it's been ages. How are you?" "I'm well, Elizabeth. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." I heard her chair creak. "Of course. What's going on?" "If someone wanted to get power of attorney over my finances, could they do that without me fully understanding what I was signing?" Silence. Then, "Dot, has someone asked you to sign power of attorney documents?" "My son mentioned it, said I should update my will and set up these things, in case something happens." "And did he offer to help you with the paperwork?" "Yes." More silence. "Dot, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not sign anything, and I mean anything, that your son gives you, not without having me review it first." My stomach dropped. "So it's possible? He could, if you sign power of attorney forms, yes, he could potentially gain access to your bank accounts, your property, everything. And if you have diminished capacity or—" "I don't have diminished capacity. I'm sharp as a tack." "I know you are. But on paper, if you've signed over power of attorney, it doesn't matter. He'd have control, and reversing it can be complicated and expensive." I thought about Trevor's credit card bills, about the $15,000 he'd asked for, about the $8,000 he still owed me. What should I do? "First, tell me everything. Start from the beginning," I told her. "About Trevor moving in 3 years ago, about the money I'd lent him that was never repaid, about his requests getting bigger, more frequent, about finding the credit card statements, about him bringing up power of attorney right after I'd refused his request for money." Elizabeth listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Dot, I'm going to be very direct with you. This sounds like financial elder abuse." "That's a strong term." "It's the correct term. He's isolated you. You're supporting him, giving him free housing. He's manipulating you emotionally, making you feel guilty when you don't give him money. And now he's trying to gain legal control of your assets. These are textbook warning signs." "But he's my son." "I know, and that makes it harder, not easier. But Dot, I've seen this before. Too many times. It usually ends with the parent having nothing left." I felt tears prickling my eyes. "What do I do?" "First, we update your will, with me, properly, in my office. We make sure everything is in order and that it's exactly what you want. Second, we document everything. The requests for money, the debts he's hiding, any questionable behavior. Third, and I know this is hard, you need to consider asking him to leave. He has nowhere to go. He's a 36-year-old man, Dot. He can figure it out. That's not your responsibility." But it felt like my responsibility. It always had. Over the next 2 weeks, I did what Elizabeth said. I documented everything. I took photos of Trevor's credit card statements. I started keeping a notebook where I wrote down every time he asked for money, what he said, how he reacted when I said no. I wrote down the conversations about power of attorney, about me getting older, about how I should let him help. I also started paying attention to other things I'd missed, like how Trevor was almost never home during the day, but he never seemed to have any actual work to show for it. No contracts, no clients. When I asked about his consulting business, his answers were vague. "It's coming together." "Still building relationships." "These things take time." But he had time to go golfing, time to buy expensive clothes, time to go out drinking with friends I never met. One morning at the park, I told Beatrice and Francis everything. It poured out of me. The money, the debt, the power of attorney suggestion, all of it. Francis nodded grimly. "Sounds like my daughter. She started small too. Little requests, then bigger ones. Then suddenly I'm signing papers I don't understand because she says it's important, and I trust her because she's my daughter." "What happened?" I asked, though I already knew. She refinanced my house, said it would lower my payments. Instead, she took out a second mortgage for herself. By the time I figured it out, I was $200,000 in debt and couldn't afford the payments. Lost the house within a year. Dear God, I whispered. The worst part? Francis's voice was bitter. The absolute worst part? I still love her. I still hope someday she'll come back and apologize and we'll fix things. But Beatrice's daughter, the therapist, she says that's probably never going to happen. She says people like this, they don't change, they just find new victims. We walked in silence for a while. Then Beatrice said, "You know what you need to do, Dot." I know. So when are you going to do it? That was the question, wasn't it? But before I could work up the courage to ask Trevor to leave, something else happened. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was at the grocery store. I was in the produce section weighing tomatoes when I heard my name. Mrs. Sullivan? Dorothy Sullivan? I turned. A young woman stood there, maybe 30, with dark hair and a baby on her hip. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. Yes? I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't bother you, but I'm Danielle. Danielle Harper. I used to work with Trevor at Morrison Tech before it went under. Oh, I put the tomatoes in my cart, trying to remember. Trevor had worked at Morrison Tech for 2 years before they laid off half their staff. Of course, how are you? I'm good, this is Emma. She jiggled the baby who was chewing on a teething ring. She's 8 months. She's beautiful. Thank you. Listen, I feel weird asking, but is Trevor okay? I saw him at the waterfront last weekend and he was pretty drunk. When I asked him how he was doing, he kind of brushed me off. The waterfront was an expensive restaurant downtown. Steaks started at $40. He's been going through a rough patch, I said carefully. Yeah, I know the Morrison Tech thing was hard on everyone. I was unemployed for 6 months before I found something new. But I was going to reach out to him anyway. My company is hiring, and I thought maybe he'd be interested. Does he still have the same number? I think so. Great, I'll text him. Maybe we can grab coffee and catch up. She shifted the baby to her other hip. It's good to see you, Mrs. Sullivan. Take care. You too, dear. After she walked away, I stood there in the produce section, my mind working. Trevor had been at the waterfront last weekend. The same weekend he'd told me he couldn't afford to contribute to groceries. The same weekend he'd asked to borrow $40 for gas. And Danielle thought he might need a job, which meant she didn't know he supposedly had his own consulting business, the business that required $15,000 in startup capital. I finished my shopping on autopilot, my thoughts churning. When I got home, Trevor's car was in the driveway. Inside, he was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open. Hey, Mom, can I talk to you for a sec? Here we go, I thought. I've been thinking about what you said, about the money I owe you, and you're right, I need to be better about paying you back. Okay, I said, setting the grocery bags on the counter. So I have a proposal. What if instead of paying you back in cash, I helped you with home repairs? I know you've been putting off some stuff. The roof needs work, the furnace is old, the porch steps are loose. I could hire contractors, manage the work, make sure you're not getting ripped off. I started unpacking groceries. That's thoughtful, Trevor, but I'm not doing any major work right now. Mom, you need to. This house is almost 60 years old. If you let these things go, they'll just get worse and more expensive. Let me help you. With money I don't have. You have equity in the house. You could get a home equity line of credit. I turned to face him. Absolutely not. He blinked, surprised by the sharpness of my tone. Mom, I'm trying to help. Are you? Or are you trying to convince me to go into debt so you can manage the work and pocket the money? His face went red. What the hell? How can you even say that? Because I found your credit card statements, Trevor. I know you're $74,000 in debt. The color drained from his face. You went through my stuff? It was sitting on your desk. So you were in my room, going through my papers. I was cleaning, and they were right there. Trevor, you told me you couldn't afford your own place. You said you were barely scraping by. But you're spending thousands at restaurants and golf, clubs, and those are business expenses, networking. For what business? What clients do you have? What contracts? I'm building relationships. Stop lying to me. The words burst out of me, loud in the quiet kitchen. Just stop. I'm not stupid, Trevor. I've been your mother for 36 years. I know when you're lying. He stared at me. For a moment, I thought he might finally tell the truth. Apologize, explain. Instead, he stood up. Fine. You want the truth? The truth is, I've been trying to rebuild my life after everything fell apart. And instead of supporting me, you're nickel and dimming me, treating me like a child. You're behaving like a child. I'm your son. I'm supposed to matter to you. You do matter to me. That's why this hurts so much. My voice cracked. Trevor, I've given you everything, my whole life. I worked 2 jobs to put you through college. I welcomed you home when your business failed. I've given you money I couldn't afford to give, and you've never, not once, paid me back. You've never contributed to groceries or utilities. You've never even thanked me. I thanked you literally 2 days ago. You thanked me right before trying to manipulate me into signing over power of attorney. His jaw clenched. I was trying to help you, to make sure you're protected. Protected from what? From having money you can't take? He grabbed his laptop and his keys. I'm not doing this. I'm not standing here being accused of whatever it is you think I'm doing. Where are you going? Out. To a hotel. Since apparently I'm such a burden. Trevor. But he was already gone, the door slamming behind him. I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by half-unpacked groceries, and I cried. Not gentle tears, but great heaving sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest. My son, my baby, the child I'd loved more than anything in this world. And I didn't even know who he was anymore. Trevor didn't come home that night, or the next day. He didn't answer my calls or my texts. Good, Beatrice said when I told her during our walk Sunday morning. Let him cool off. Maybe he'll realize he had it pretty good. But I couldn't stop worrying. What if something happened to him? What if he... Beatrice grabbed my arm, stopping me mid-step. Listen to yourself. He's a grown man. He can take care of himself. This is part of the manipulation, making you feel guilty for setting boundaries. I know, I whispered. I know you're right, but he's still my son. And you're still a person who deserves respect. On Monday, I went to see Elizabeth. I told her about the confrontation, about Trevor leaving. This is good, she said. I know it doesn't feel like it, but this is an opportunity. We need to change your locks immediately. Today. Change my locks? He has a key. If he's angry, if he's desperate for money, he could come back when you're not home. He could take things, bank statements, jewelry, whatever he could sell. Trevor wouldn't he? Elizabeth's face was kind but firm. 2 weeks ago, you would have said he wouldn't try to trick you into signing away control of your finances. But he did. She was right. I didn't want her to be right, but she was. We changed the locks that afternoon. Elizabeth went with me to the hardware store, helped me hire a locksmith, waited while the man installed new deadbolts on all the doors. When he was done, I had 3 new keys. I gave one to Beatrice, one to Elizabeth, and kept one for myself. Trevor didn't get one. That night, around 9 p.m., I heard his car in the driveway, then his key in the lock. It didn't work. He tried again. Then I heard him swear. Footsteps around to the back door. Another attempt. More swearing. Finally, a knock. Mom, let me in. What the hell? I stayed seated on the couch, my heart pounding. Mom, why did you change the locks? He knocked harder. Come on, this is ridiculous. I live here. I thought about going to the door, about explaining, about apologizing, but I didn't. After 15 minutes, he stopped knocking. I heard him get back in his car. The engine started. He pulled out of the driveway, and I sat there in my quiet house and wondered if I'd just destroyed my relationship with my only child. The next morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Trevor's number. Hello? Mom. His voice was different, calm, measured. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled at you. I shouldn't have left like that. Okay. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. I haven't been pulling my weight. I've been taking advantage of your generosity. I waited. There was something about his tone that felt scripted. I want to make things right, he continued. I want to sit down with you and talk about how I can contribute more, how I can pay you back. But I need to get my stuff. Can I come by this morning? I'll pack up your things, I said. You can pick them up later. Mom, come on, don't be like this. I'm trying to apologize. I appreciate that, but I think it's better if you don't come inside right now. Are you serious? You're really going to keep me out of the house? For now, yes. This is insane. You're treating me like a criminal. I'm treating you like someone I don't trust right now. There's a difference. He hung up on me. I called Beatrice. She came over and together we packed up Trevor's room. His clothes, his laptop, his papers. I made copies of the credit card statements first. Elizabeth had told me to document everything. We put it all in boxes and stacked them in the garage. At 2 p.m., Trevor came back. I watched from the window as he loaded the boxes into his car. Beatrice stood beside me. You're doing the right thing, she said. Then why does it feel so wrong? Because he's your son, and you love him. But love doesn't mean being a doormat. When Trevor was done loading his car, he came to the door. I opened it but didn't invite him in. Happy now? He asked. His face was hard, angry. No, I said honestly. I'm not happy at all. You're making a huge mistake. I'm your son, your only family. You're my son, and I love you, but I can't let you take advantage of me anymore. I wasn't taking advantage, I was... He stopped, shook his head. Fine. You want to be alone? You got it. Don't call me when you fall and break your hip and there's no one to help you. The words hit like a slap. Trevor, no, you made your choice. You chose to believe I'm some kind of con artist instead of your son who's been struggling. You've always been like this. Suspicious, controlling. Dad left because of it, you know. Because you couldn't just let people live their lives. He turned and walked away before I could respond. Got in his car and drove off. I closed the door and slid down to the floor, my back against the wood, and sobbed. Beatrice sat down beside me. She didn't say anything. Just put her arm around my shoulders and let me cry. For a week, I heard nothing from Trevor. I didn't reach out either. I went on my morning walks. I saw Elizabeth and updated my will, making sure everything was clear and ironclad. I went to my yoga class at the senior center. I had lunch with Francis and Beatrice at the diner on Thursday, our usual spot. Life went on, quieter without Trevor in the house. But I missed him. I missed the good parts. The occasional morning when he was in a good mood and we'd laugh over coffee. The nights when we'd watch Jeopardy together and he'd let me beat him to the answers even though he knew them first. The person I thought he was. On the 8th day, my phone rang. An unknown number. Mrs. Sullivan? This is Derek Thornton. I'm a friend of Trevor's. I stiffened. What can I do for you, Mr. Thornton? Trevor's been staying with me since his little dispute with you. Listen, I'm going to be direct. He's in a bad way. He's depressed, barely eating. He's convinced you hate him. I don't hate him. Then why'd you kick him out? That's between me and Trevor. Look, I get it. Kids can be frustrating. But Trevor's a good guy who's had some bad breaks, and right now he needs his mom. Something about this call felt wrong. How did you get my number? Trevor gave it to me. He asked me to call you, try to smooth things over. Then he can call me himself. He's afraid you'll hang up on him. Mrs. Sullivan, he really needs your help right now. Financial help. There it was. How much? I asked flatly. Just enough to get him back on his feet. Maybe 10,000, 15, it would really... I hung up. My hands were shaking. I called Elizabeth immediately and told her about the call. That's escalation, she said grimly. He's using surrogates to apply pressure. This is not good, Dot. Has he tried to contact you directly? No, just this Derek person. If he does, don't engage. And if anyone else calls asking for money on his behalf, hang up and call me. We might need to consider a restraining order." Restraining order? Against my own son? If he's harassing you, yes. This situation is deteriorating. He's angry, he's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep, thinking about Elizabeth's words. Desperate people do desperate things. What would Trevor do? I got my answer 2 days later. I came home from grocery shopping to find my back door's lock had been damaged. Someone had tried to force it open. There were scratches on the metal. The frame was splintered. They hadn't gotten in. The new deadbolt had held. But someone had tried. I called the police. 2 officers came, took a report, examined the damage. One of them, Officer Patricia Kendrick, asked if I knew anyone who might do this. I hesitated. Then, "My son, we've been having difficulties." She wrote that down. "Does he have a history of violence?" "No, nothing like that. But he has a key to my old locks. I changed them recently and he wasn't happy about it." "Has he threatened you?" "Not exactly, but he's been pressuring me for money, trying to get me to sign legal documents. My lawyer thinks—" I stopped. It sounded so dramatic, so paranoid. "Ma'am, why don't you tell me everything?" Officer Kendrick said gently. So I did. Again, the whole story, the money, the debt, the power of attorney attempt, the changed locks, the phone call from Derek. When I finished, she closed her notebook. "Mrs. Sullivan, what you're describing is financial elder abuse. It's more common than you'd think, especially when the abuser is a family member. He's not abusing me, he's pressuring you for money, attempting to gain control of your finances, and now he's potentially tried to break into your home. That's abuse." The word hung in the air between us. Abuse. "We can have extra patrols in your neighborhood," Officer Kendrick continued, "and I'd recommend installing security cameras, just in case. Do you have somewhere else you can stay for a few days?" "I'm not leaving my home." "I understand. But if this escalates, I'll be fine." She didn't look convinced, but she gave me her card. "Call me if anything happens, anything at all, day or night." After the police left, I called Beatrice. "That's it," she said. "You're staying with me." "I'm not. Someone tried to break into your house. Your son tried to break into your house. You're staying with me until this is resolved. I won't be driven out of my own home. Then I'm coming to stay with you." And she did. That night, Beatrice showed up with a suitcase and her portable DVD player and a box set of Murder. She wrote, "If we're doing this, we're doing it right," she said. For 3 days, Beatrice stayed with me. We watched TV, we cooked together, we laughed about stupid things and avoided talking about the elephant in the room. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Trevor. I almost didn't answer, but Beatrice nodded at me. "Put it on speaker." "Hello?" "Mom," his voice was thick, slurred, drunk. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything." "Trevor, are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm at Derek's, or I was. He kicked me out. Everyone kicks me out eventually, don't they?" "Trevor." "You know what's funny? I really believed I could do it. The business thing. I really thought this time would be different. But I'm just a failure, just like Dad always said." My heart clenched. "Your father never said that. He didn't have to. He left, didn't he? Because I wasn't good enough." "That's not why he left, honey. Your father and I, we had our own problems. I needed you, Mom. I needed your help, and you turned your back on me." "I didn't turn my back. I just couldn't keep enabling." "Enabling?" His voice turned sharp. "Is that what your lawyer told you? That helping your son is enabling? Trevor, you have $74,000 in debt. You need help, but not the kind I was giving you." "I tried to break in," he said suddenly. "I tried to get into the house. Did you know that?" My breath caught. Beside me, Beatrice had her phone out, recording. "Why, Trevor? Why would you do that?" "Because I needed some things, some documents." What documents? Insurance papers, bank statements, information. Information for what? Does it matter? You've already decided I'm the bad guy. I haven't decided anything, but you're scaring me right now. Good. Maybe you should be scared. Maybe you should think about what happens to old ladies who live alone and don't have anyone to look after them. Beatrice stood up, grabbing her own phone. She was texting someone, probably Elizabeth or the police. Trevor, are you threatening me? I'm not threatening you. I'm just stating facts. You're 68 years old. You're alone. Anything could happen. Then he hung up. I sat there, the phone still against my ear, my whole body shaking. That's it, Beatrice said. We're calling Officer Kendrick right now. Officer Kendrick came back that evening, this time with another officer. They listened to the recording Beatrice had made. This is a direct threat, Officer Kendrick said. Combined with the attempted break-in, we have enough to arrest him. No. The word came out before I could stop it. Please, not arrested. Not my son. Mrs. Sullivan, he threatened you. He tried to break into your home. I know, but arresting him, that will destroy any chance we have of fixing this. Officer Kendrick exchanged glances with her partner. Ma'am, I understand he's your son, but give me a week, I begged. Please, let me try to talk to him when he's sober. Let me try to get him help. 1 week, Officer Kendrick said finally, but at the end of that week, if he's made any more attempts to contact you, any more threats, we're pressing charges. And Mrs. Sullivan, I really think you should consider that restraining order. After they left, I sat with Beatrice in my living room. You're too soft on him, she said. He's my son. He's an adult man who threatened you. He was drunk. That doesn't make it okay, Dot. I know. I wiped my eyes. But what if I'm his last chance? What if I give up on him now and what if something happens? What if something happens to you? Beatrice countered. What if next time he doesn't just try to break in? What if next time he succeeds? I didn't have an answer for that. Trevor didn't call for the next week. Neither did anyone else on his behalf. I installed security cameras. One facing the front door, one facing the back. I could check them on my phone, see who was coming and going. It made me feel both safer and more paranoid at the same time. On day 6, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, Mom, please read this. I almost deleted it, but I opened it. Mom, I'm sorry. I know I keep saying that, and I know you probably don't believe me. But I am. I was drunk when I called you. I didn't mean what I said. I would never hurt you. You're my mother. I love you. I know I've messed up. I know I've taken advantage of your kindness. I'm in therapy now. Actual therapy, not just saying I'll go. I'm facing my problems, my debt, my issues. But I need to explain something. The power of attorney thing. I wasn't trying to steal from you. Derek told me it was important, that parents should have these things set up. I didn't understand what it really meant. I was just trying to help. The business expenses, I know they look bad. But I really was trying to network, to build relationships. Maybe I went overboard. Maybe I made bad choices. But it wasn't malicious. Everything I've done, it's been because I'm scared. I'm scared of failing again. I'm scared of ending up alone with nothing. I'm scared that I've wasted my potential and disappointed you. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But can we talk? Just talk, in a public place if that makes you more comfortable. I want to show you I'm serious about changing. I love you, Mom. You're the only family I have. Trevor. I read the email 3 times. It sounded sincere, vulnerable, like the son I remembered, not the angry stranger he'd become. Or was I just seeing what I wanted to see? I forwarded it to Elizabeth. She called me 5 minutes later. Don't meet with him alone, she said immediately. If you insist on meeting him at all, which I don't recommend, do it in a public place with someone else present. He's asking to apologize. He's asking for another chance to manipulate you. This email is textbook reconciliation phase. It's part of the cycle. What cycle? abuse. Tension builds, there's an incident, then there's reconciliation where the abuser apologizes and promises to change. Then things are calm for a while before the tension starts building again. Trevor's not an abuser, isn't he? I didn't respond. Look, Elizabeth sighed. I can't stop you from seeing your son, but please at least take someone with you and meet in a very public place. And don't agree to anything. No money, no documents, nothing. I won't. But I was already composing a reply to Trevor's email. We met 3 days later at Rosie's Diner, the place where Francis, Beatrice, and I had lunch every Thursday. I chose it deliberately. Public, familiar, with Beatrice at a table across the restaurant pretending to read a newspaper, but actually watching us. Trevor was already there when I arrived. He stood when he saw me, looking uncertain. He'd lost weight, his face was thinner, his clothes hanging loose. Mom. He didn't try to hug me. Thank you for coming. We sat. A waitress came over and we ordered coffee. Neither of us wanted food. When we were alone, Trevor said, I meant everything in that email. I'm really in therapy. I can show you the receipts if you want. That's good, honey. I'm proud of you. I've been thinking a lot about my choices, about how I've treated you. He looked down at his hands. You were right. About all of it. I was using you. Not consciously. I kept telling myself I was just getting back on my feet, that I'd pay you back. But I never did. I just kept asking for more. Why? I asked. Trevor, why did you need so much money? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I couldn't admit I'd failed. Everyone from college, they're all successful. They have careers, families. And I had nothing. So I pretended. I bought expensive clothes, went to expensive restaurants, tried to look like I had it all together. But I was drowning. You could have told me. How could I tell you I was a failure? After everything you sacrificed for me? You're not a failure. You're human. You made mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. He looked up and his eyes were red. I'm declaring bankruptcy. It's the only way. And I'm moving to Arizona. There's a friend from college out there who runs a small tech company. He offered me a job. Not a fancy one, just regular salary, health insurance. But it's real. That sounds good. I wanted to tell you in person. And to say goodbye properly. He reached across the table, stopped before touching my hand. Can you forgive me, someday? I looked at my son. At this person I'd raised, who I loved, who'd hurt me so deeply. I can forgive you, I said, but I can't forget. And I can't go back to how things were. I understand. He pulled back his hand. The therapy is helping me see that I need to do this on my own. I can't depend on you to rescue me every time things get hard. We talked for another hour. He told me about the therapy, about his plans for Arizona, about how he was selling everything he could to pay off his debts. I told him about the security cameras, about Elizabeth, about my morning walks with Beatrice. When we were done, he stood. I'm leaving next Tuesday. I won't bother you again before then, but I wanted to thank you for everything and to say I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I love you, Trevor. I love you too, Mom. He walked out of the diner. I watched him go, this stranger who was my son. Beatrice came over to my table. How do you feel? I don't know, I said honestly. Sad, relieved, hopeful, maybe? That's better than yesterday. Maybe she was right, but that's not where the story ends. Because 3 days later, 3 days before Trevor was supposed to leave for Arizona, I was stirring that pot roast when the police knocked on my door. And that's when everything I thought I knew fell apart. That is not your son, Officer Kendrick had said. We were downstairs now, the man who looked like Trevor in handcuffs, sitting on my couch. Other officers had arrived. The house was full of people, and I couldn't understand what was happening. Mrs. Sullivan, Officer Kendrick said gently, I need you to sit down. I sat. Your son, Trevor Sullivan, was killed in a car accident at 3:47 this afternoon. His vehicle left the road on Route 47. He was pronounced dead at the scene. But the man upstairs is not your son. His name is Marcus Flynn. He's Trevor's former roommate from college. We've been looking for him in connection with several identity theft cases. I stared at the man on my couch. Marcus, not Trevor. I looked closer. The jawline was slightly different, the eyes a different shade, but in dim light with Trevor's clothes, his mannerisms. I don't understand. Officer Kendrick sat beside me. We found documents in Trevor's car. It appears he and Marcus were running a scheme together. Trevor would identify potential victims, elderly parents with assets, and Marcus would replace him. Replace him? The plan was for Trevor to fake his death. Marcus would continue living with you, gaining your trust, eventually obtaining power of attorney and access to your finances. By the time anyone realized Trevor was alive, your assets would be gone and both of them would have disappeared. The room spun. That can't be true. Trevor and we had coffee 3 days ago. He apologized. He said he was moving to Arizona. He was never moving to Arizona, Mrs. Sullivan. He was planning to disappear, with your money. I looked at Marcus, at the man who'd been sleeping in Trevor's bed, eating Trevor's meals, pretending to be my son. He wouldn't meet my eyes. But the accident was real, I asked. Yes, we think he lost control of the vehicle. There was no mechanical failure. We believe he was driving recklessly, perhaps distracted or impaired. It was a genuine accident. So Trevor was dead. Actually dead. My son, who I'd just forgiven, who I'd just allowed myself to hope might change, was gone. And the person I'd been living with for the past week wasn't him at all. How long? I whispered. How long has Marcus been here? Officer Kendrick hesitated. We're not sure yet. We're still investigating. But Mrs. Sullivan, the documents in Trevor's car suggest this was planned for at least 2 months, possibly longer. 2 months? I thought about the confrontation in the kitchen, the phone call where Trevor had threatened me, the email apologizing. Which of those had been real Trevor? Which had been Marcus? Had any of it been real? Mrs. Sullivan, another detective, had entered the room. We'll need to ask you some questions, and we'll need to go through Trevor's room, his possessions. His room, I repeated numbly. Marcus's room, Officer Kendrick corrected gently. Marcus, a stranger, a criminal, living in my house, sleeping down the hall, eating my food, planning to rob me. The next few days were a blur, police interviews, statements, going through everything in Trevor's room and realizing I couldn't tell what belonged to my actual son and what Marcus had brought. Phone records showing calls between Trevor and Marcus, planning, bank statements revealing money Trevor had stolen from me that I hadn't even noticed. Small amounts from my account, taken regularly over months. Elizabeth was with me through all of it. So was Beatrice. They sat with me during the interviews, made sure I ate, stayed the night when I couldn't bear to be alone. The media got wind of the story. Reporters called. I unplugged my phone. Trevor's body was released for burial. I had to plan a funeral for a son who'd been planning to rob me, who'd brought a stranger into my home to impersonate him, who'd looked me in the eye and lied about everything. The funeral was small. Just me, Elizabeth, Beatrice, Francis, and a few of Trevor's old colleagues who'd seen the obituary. Danielle came, the woman from the grocery store, with her baby. I'm so sorry, she said, crying. I had no idea he was in such a dark place. I didn't tell her the truth. What was the point? We buried Trevor next to my parents. I stood at the grave and didn't cry. I'd cried myself out over the past week. Now I just felt empty. Do you want to say anything? The priest asked. What was there to say? I loved him, I said finally. I loved my son, and I'll never know if he ever really loved me back. It took 3 more weeks for the police to piece together the full story. Trevor and Marcus had met in college and stayed in touch. When Trevor's business failed and he moved in with me, he'd told Marcus about his retirement plan, gaining control of my assets, and disappearing. They'd planned it for over a year. The initial requests for money, the increased desperation, those had been real Trevor, really in debt, really failing. But somewhere along the line, the plan had evolved. Marcus had visited a few times, spending time with Trevor, learning his mannerisms, his way of speaking. The confrontation where I'd found the credit card statements? Real Trevor. The changed locks? Real Trevor's response. The attempted break-in? Real Trevor. But the threatening phone call when he was drunk? That had been Marcus practicing, with real Trevor listening and coaching. The email apologizing? Marcus, using things real Trevor had told him to say. The coffee at Rosie's Diner? Marcus. I'd sat across from an imposter and believed he was my son, apologizing, promising to change. Real Trevor had been busy that day applying for credit cards in my name, preparing to drain my bank accounts. The accident had happened because Trevor was speeding, probably excited about the plan coming together, probably already counting his money. And when he died, Marcus had panicked. He'd stayed in the house, hoping to somehow still pull off the scheme before anyone realized Trevor was dead. It was Officer Kendrick who'd finally put it together. She'd seen the photo on Trevor's license, compared it to the man in my house, noticed the subtle differences. She'd saved me. Marcus Flynn pleaded guilty to identity theft, fraud, and conspiracy. He got 8 years. He told the prosecutors everything, trying to reduce his sentence. How Trevor had coached him, how they'd practiced conversations, how close they'd come to succeeding. Your instincts saved you, Elizabeth told me. Changing those locks, documenting everything, refusing to sign the power of attorney. If you hadn't done those things... But I didn't feel saved. I felt hollowed out. My son had tried to rob me, had brought a stranger into my home to help him do it, had looked me in the eye and lied over and over. And I'd never get to confront him about it. Never get to ask why. Never get closure. He was just... gone. 6 months later, I was sitting in Rosie's Diner with Beatrice and Francis. Thursday lunch, our routine. "How are you doing?" Francis asked. "Really?" "Some days are better than others," I said honestly. "I'm seeing a therapist. She specializes in elder abuse. Can you believe there are specialists for that?" "There should be more," Beatrice said darkly. "This happens way too often." She says what I'm feeling is normal. The grief, the anger, the betrayal. She says it's okay to love Trevor and hate what he did at the same time. "That's very wise," Francis said. "I've been thinking about starting a support group," I continued, "for other elderly people dealing with financial abuse from their families. The therapist says she has other clients who could benefit." "That's a wonderful idea," Beatrice said. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You're the strongest person I know, Dot. You survived this, you protected yourself. And now you want to help others? That's not just strong, that's heroic." I didn't feel heroic. But maybe that was okay. My phone buzzed. A text from Elizabeth. "Judge approved your petition. House is solely in your name now. No claims from Trevor's estate." I'd been worried about that, if Trevor's debts could somehow affect my property. But Elizabeth had filed protective paperwork, and the judge had agreed. The house was safe. "Good news?" Beatrice asked. "Yes, the house is officially mine. No complications." "Of course it is. It was always yours." But it hadn't felt like mine. Not since Trevor came home 3 years ago. Not since I'd stopped living for myself and started living in service of his needs, his wants, his endless consumption. Now, though, now it was just mine again. And maybe that was enough. Would you have forgiven him? If Trevor had lived, if the plan had been exposed, if he'd been the one sitting in prison instead of Marcus, would you have forgiven your son for trying to rob you? I think about that sometimes. Late at night, when I can't sleep, when I'm remembering the good times, teaching Trevor to ride a bike, watching him graduate college, the way he used to laugh at my terrible jokes. I loved him. I still love him, even knowing what he did. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe that makes me a fool. Or maybe that just makes me a mother. But here's what I know now. Love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you financially, emotionally, spiritually. Love doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no, to set boundaries, to protect yourself. I wish I'd learned that lesson sooner. Before I'd given Trevor thousands of dollars I couldn't afford. Before I'd let him live rent-free while I worried about making ends meet. Before I'd prioritized his comfort over my safety. But I learned it. And now I'm teaching it to others, at my support group, which has 15 members, and growing. Elderly people who've been manipulated by their children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews. People who thought family meant unconditional financial support. People who learned, like me, that blood doesn't excuse exploitation. I'm 69 now. I have a good 15 or 20 years ahead of me, if I'm lucky, and I'm going to spend them living for myself, taking yoga classes, going on the cruise Beatrice keeps suggesting. Maybe even dating. Dr. Reeves at the clinic has been awfully friendly lately, and I'm not dead yet. I'm going to spend my money on myself. Save what I want to save. Give to charities I believe in. Live in my house without fear of someone trying to take it from me. I'm going to be the person Trevor prevented me from being for 3 years. And maybe, someday, I'll be able to think about my son without feeling this crushing weight of grief and betrayal. But not today. Today I'm just going to be Dorothy Sullivan, survivor. And that's enough. Sometimes I wonder if younger people understand what it's like to be treated as invisible in your own family, to be seen only as a source of money, a problem to be managed, a resource to be drained. To realize the child you raised, the person you loved more than life itself, sees you as nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. Do they understand what it's like to look at your son, the baby you nursed, the toddler you taught to walk, the child you protected from every hurt, and realize he's counting the days until you die so he can inherit? Or worse, planning to speed up that timeline? I hope they never have to learn, but if they do, I hope they're braver than I was. I hope they set boundaries sooner. I hope they protect themselves before it's too late. Because family is supposed to be about love, not exploitation. And anyone who tells you different is trying to rob you blind.